Hello everybody, welcome back as ever to Building Blocks, where we program Minecraft mods live on camera and watch as things detonate inevitably. Because Minecraft is not a stable engine, least of all when you're adding mods to it. So, much like Skyrim, things are often more entertaining when they break than when they work. But nonetheless, we have a few things that are working it today. So, last time, I don't remember what we were working on. So I'm just going to tell you what I've been working on for like the past week and a half or so. Which is to say, the abilities screen. We have had a couple, I think, versions out since last week. And now we actually have a ton of stuff to show. So let me just add a couple of things here. I have been making some progress on blindness, but we'll show that later on because that is a lot of stuff going on. But anyways, let's add my usual go-to here of the teleports in ghost form. There we go. So, top left, we actually have a we have a view now of our favorite ability slots. We can move that around in the config. There's a client-side config specifically for controlling that. And that means you can put it on the top right, the bottom right, or the bottom left as well. And then, if I hit my key binding for the ability menu, which can also be, you can also control that in the config to be hold to open or just click. In my case, I prefer click. We now have this lovely ability screen. And we can see it's a little bit animated. It's pretty sweet. I do like it. I'm currently a construct creature type, so I have all these abilities over here, just verbatim. Immunity to death, enchantment, falling, and necromancy. Very fun. I have reduced the size of these relative to these as well. So you can have, like, 50, I think, on a screen before it starts to get actually, like, off the screen, which is pretty sweet. You can also have some pretty lengthy names as well, which is nice. If I add a whole ton of breath weapons as my main go-to here. Damage type, I believe I'm getting the details here correct. Good, yes. We'll add a fire one, we'll add a psychic one. Let's also add, say, a cold one and a lightning one. I now have 5 distinct breath weapons, which means that I actually have more activated abilities than this screen is able to show it all at once. Which is handy then that there is a scroll feature now. Pretty sweet, pretty sweet. So you can access all of your activated abilities quite happily, and as long as you want to, you can actually plunk them onto your favorites as well. It's pretty swish, I do enjoy it. And let's plunk that one there too. So, all of that, fully accessible, and now we can just hit our keys as and how we like. Dimension Door has gotten a slight rework in that it now does a search around where you point, so it tries to not place you over, like, the edge of a cliff. It will try to place you on sort of safe terrain. It still sometimes puts you in midair, but not usually more than, like, a block. And it very rarely will put you actually, like just into an area where you would take damage effectively. But if you point at a spot, it will try to put you as close as possible to there, whilst still being safe, which is pretty nice. Let's see. That is the majority of that. We've also these effects over here, immediate death, immediate enchantment. Those are related to the spell system. Those were formerly handled by the type handler of the creature types, but they are no longer. There is in fact more or less just one thing currently that is handled by the actual inborn code of the type handlers. Everything else is like booleans or not, that kind of thing. Which is what we'll be talking about later today. But I've also done some work today on the ever fun blind ability, which is native to all oozes, as well as bestowed by the various equipment blindfold. This is one of the more drastic and dramatic views, because this is basically all that we can see. But if we move around and look around, we actually get a little bit of a view of what's around us now. And this view is temporary. It does go away, as long as we're not looking at the things. But for about 15 seconds, whenever you walk on a block or look at the block, it will display even when you're blind, which is meant to be a shorthand for I have felt around and I know what this block was. That kind of thing. Previously, you would have had to have had F3 open the entire time, and I can't imagine that this is very playable. Just... Admittedly, I play with F3 open a lot, but nonetheless, it's a little better to have it like that. So, for about 15 seconds, you can see where you came from. Now, I have also been trying to implement it so that you can actually sprint and deal critical hits if you're blind, but unfortunately the code for that is buried very deep into blindness, so I can't really use Mixin to fix it, and there's no events for it. So, unless we figure out a better standard of this person cannot see, and is therefore not vulnerable to gaze attacks like Fire and Ice's Petrification, blindness is here to stay, and consequently, you can't sprint. Which is a pity, but oh well. Anyways, there's the obsidian. Okay. It's not perfect rendering, but I feel good enough for, this is what I remember this being recently. And it does do some fairly decent views of what things are. So hang on, there's that. If that's over there, then I'm on the right-hand side. So over here is the solid ones. And then, let's see, stone, here's the walls. Aha! Here's the villager pen. So yeah, this is meant to be you're feeling your way around, so that you can identify exactly what's where. And that then means that I can actually navigate, albeit very carefully. It's not perfect rendering, it's also not meant to be perfect rendering. What I would like to do as a touch is to actually make the blocks fade out rather than just vanishing, but that code is a little bit beyond me because I'm god awful with graphics. So, man, there should be a never port around here, shouldn't there be? Yep, okay. Yep, there we are. One never portal. Found you. And can still see you because of the particles, but yeah. Okay. We did have a bug in there is a bug, I should say, in the most recently released beta version on Curse, which is that abilities aren't synchronizing properly between the server and the client. I believe that I've fixed that for the time being, so shouldn't be a problem anymore. Reminding you of a specific level in one of the Super Mario Galaxy games. Yeah, I can see that. I can definitely see that. Ah, Nippy's gonna love that. Let me see, what else? Oh yeah, we do actually have sorting now. Psychic Breath? Yes, Psychic Breath. Psychic is a damage type that we have defined, ergo, you can have Psychic Damage Breath. It's an odd concept, but is that Mind Blast? I guess it's Mind Bullets. But yeah, we now actually have the capacity to sort abilities alphabetically now, so I can actually, show these a bit more easily. So, yeah, all of those. And the vast majority of them purely from me. Which is to remind that there is the abilities that are native to your entity, there is the abilities that are native to your species, and there's the abilities which are native to your creature types. And it sort of goes bottom up in terms of, priority. So if your creature types give you a, say, resistance to fire, then it can be overridden by a vulnerability to fire from your species, and then overwritten again as an immunity to fire by your actual entity, which gives us a lot of room for manipulation, and I love it. But anyways, there is an ability that we need to try and figure out today, because it is one of the last things that is specifically inside of a creature type, a subtype to be exact, which is the capacity for air-type creatures to fly. Which isn't so much a problem, except that it's identical to creative mode flight, and basically means that you can cheese the entire game if you happen to be air-type. It's very low, like, it's very low risk or kind of power or whatnot. It's just, like, ridiculous. Having creative mode flight from day one is really not great for balance. And also it'd be nice to actually have things a bit more in my wheelhouse rather than just trusting that Minecraft will handle it okay. So, here's our design process for that. On the Cumblock Home server, I have an umbrella. That umbrella grants me slow falling. I then also have an enchanted armor set, which gives me, I think, like, multi-jump 10. Basically meaning that if I jump, I can then jump again about 10 times. 10 to 11, I think. Heck, if I remember exactly, it's really come up. Combined, those make for a really interesting way of flight. It's sort of like you're actually flapping your wings, as it were. And you are bobbing up and down, and you have to pay attention to hover, and plus, if we did it that way, anyone that gets paralyzed can't keep flying. Which is exactly what happens if you paralyze a bird in mid-flight. When flying used up your hunger super quick, trivial to get around, believe it or not. Like, actually really not a huge problem. Do this too and it's weird and fun. Yeah, it's like, I enjoy it as a mechanism and it feels very, like, actually much like flying rather than... And this feels more like I'm just stood on something, really. It doesn't really feel like I'm flying, I'm just present, as it were. So, to do that, we're going to be implementing an ability today, and we're going to try and do this. I think the best way to do this is in 2 steps. So, step 1, slow falling, step 2, multiple jumps. First off then, we're going to need a new ability, and these have been arranged, these have been reorganized quite a bit. Previously, types were in their own thing, I think abilities were under types, and now we have species, where types and abilities are both part of species. So it's tidied up a fair bit, but it does mean, I've probably broken somebody's code an age ago. So, okay. Let's start with ability move mode. Make that an abstract. And have this be an activated ability. My reasoning being that if we have our flight abilities, for instance, cause you to have slow falling, occasionally you're going to want to turn that off. For instance, if you fall at like 1/10 the rate of a standard creature, you probably are going to have some trouble with stairs. They're probably going to get kind of annoying. So being able to turn this on and off would probably be appreciated. So, let's see, we want protected, ability move mode, resource location, because we need a registry name for each individual kind of movement mode. And there are going to be multiples. So, let me see, there's swimming, which players more or less have innately anyways. There is flight, which comes in various varieties. There is burrowing, which is kind of digging. And I think there's even more, but heck if I remember what they are off the top of my head. What do you need? Cooldown, of course, yes. Well, if it's a movement mode, we'll just say, like, a second. Because we're going to presume you toggle this anyways. Can you imagine if I set it to 1 hour? You turn off your flight just to like come in for a landing and you're stuck on the ground for an hour. It's like, boy, are my arms tired. Okay, and this would definitely be a utility type of ability. What type an ability is affects predominantly what icon it has in your favorites bar. I contemplated showing those on the ability screen, but it got a bit noisy. Now let me see. Did I add an active here? Active ticks, yes, right there. Is active. Yes, good. Okay. So trigger, we want to say this dot active ticks equals this dot active ticks greater than 0. then 0, otherwise 1. Because we don't want that to actually be a timer, we just want it to be on or off, essentially. Okay. Extending out of that, we want ability flight. And we're going to start with just like the one kind of flight, just so we can actually identify things a bit better. Static resource. Okay, would help if I could spell. Thank you. Resource location, registry name. So the way that this will work is air will give you a fairly high grade flight ability by writ, but your species can overwrite that with its own particular degree of flight. Hence, air-type creatures will usually have perfect flight, but not always. Okay. All good. So let's see, we're going to need listeners for this. Thank you. Okay. Right. So, public void add slow falling. How do we want to apply this? Well, let's have a quick poke at the artifacts code and see exactly how my umbrella does it, shall we? So let's see. Artifacts. Oh, that's resources, not code. Where are we go? Common item. Umbrella. There you are. Okay. On living updates. Ah, the Forge Gravity mods. I see. Okay. So it adds an attribute modifier to gravity, which, fun fact, is a thing that Forge implements. Doesn't exist in vanilla. Very handy. Slightly an odd thing for them to actually add, but So we'll just tack that on, plus add listener. This, add slow falling. And step 1, get the living entity. Step 2, ask if the living entity actually has this ability. And unlike many of our abilities, these will actually be unique. You will not be able to have more than one type of flight. More than one type of movement, but not more than one type of flight. Because also, why would you ever just not... Why would you ever not use the best one you have anyways? Is this what hackers see? No, they chiefly see a lot of, like, render boxes and outlines and bounding boxes and such. This is what the game developers see. So from the entity, get map name again, it'll be just the same thing. If you don't, if a ability does not specify what its map name changes to, it always defaults to the registry name. Which is to say that unless you specify that an ability can be, like, obtained in multiples, then... Can't believe Lang is currently hacking the Pentagon? Shush. Definitely not a thing I need insinuated, thank you very much. Okay. Let's establish first the magnitude of slow fall. So we want private double slow fall. We'll use that as our distinct measurement of what, just how slowly we would fall. There's a few different kinds of flight. Let's see, where am I looking? There you are. Okay. So, as ever, Dungeons & Dragons 3.5 is our guidebook here. Perfect creatures. The creature can perform almost any aerial maneuver it wishes. It moves through the air as well as a human moves over smooth ground. This I've more or less codified as being creative mode flight. That makes the most sense to me. A lot of other things here are like, we would probably have a full modifier near 0. But getting, like, progressively higher up. Very straightforward. Just kind of a notification from a Nigerian prince. You should send him all your money. Isn't that what you usually say to people about me, Dusty? So, okay, let's... Public, static, enum, grade, I guess. Would make most sense here. So we want perfect, good, average, and clumsy. Or if you have no money, sell your soul. Unfortunately, that's worthless as well. So just making a really quick thing here, so that I can actually categorize exactly how, like, how this works. Mine some Ethereum and sell it. It'd be cheaper to just mine the oil you burn for it. There we go. Good start. So, perfect, we'll say has 0 gravity. Clumsy, we'll say has normal. Say that's 0.6. Actually 0.3. And that's 0.6. So progressively up the steps, you get better and better, like slower and slower gravity. You're better at hovering in air, and therefore you're better able to actually move in your own directions. Interesting fact, much like Team Fortress 2, you can sort of still move in mid-air. Which allows you to, like... It's what allows dropper maps to work, essentially. So we don't actually need to program the capacity to move around in mid-air, because we're already there. It makes no sense, but it's there. In Team Fortress 2, it's what allows rocket jumping soldiers to go around corners. Market gardening in Minecraft real? There are definitely mods that implemented that. Like, no question. Okay. So, with that, we can now get ourselves a grade, and let's default that to just be perfect, because, again, we presume it will be by default. Okay. So, let's see what the exact name of the modifiable attribute I got was. Literally, Forge Motor Anti-Gravity. Okay. That's a registry thing, isn't it? Good. Okay. This doesn't look like Minecraft. Oh, it's what Minecraft looks like when you twist it into a very strange shape, that's for sure. It'll look more like Minecraft when I boot up the game in a second. This dude's one of the Matrix. Oh no, God no. Matrices are used for rendering mostly. I'm terrible at that. Okay, we need public static UUID. We need a actual UUID, which is a unique identifier of a given attribute modifier, so that we know if one is already applied, essentially. So call that gravity UUID. Lang is also a hacking nerd. You're watching me do a programming stream! In what manner is that surprising? Okay, I'm just gonna start off with that being random. I speak English and binary, and a little bit of German, and a even tinier bit of Japanese. Okay, just gonna sys out here, so that I can track whatever that is. I could give it an actual, like, random string just typed out, but using an actual random number generator makes it more likely that somebody else isn't using the same thing. For instance, if I made a UUID of 42069FF, probably there's somebody else using it. Also, there wouldn't be enough characters anyway. So, gravity UUID to string. The joke you could make here if Lang was non-binary. I mean, close. And that is beyond my level of German, I'm afraid. Okay, ability registry. Let's add this thing in. Which means we now need a builder. Now the reason that we use a builder instead of just calling a constructor here is so that we can actually have instances of abilities, among other things. You have a turtle in your basement. Ah, ein Schildkröte. Interesting. There are 1-0 kinds of people in the world, those who understand binary and those who don't. There's also 1-0 types of people in the world, those who understand binary spoken from text, and those who don't. Okay, real quick, right there. So, right now, this should do heckle, because we don't actually tell it to do anything, but we should nonetheless be able to register that there is the ability there, and also from there get our UUID. Your one programming joke. Oh, cover time. Ooh, lovely. Okay. As ever, here we are in Minecraft's, albeit twisted into an interesting shape. So let's see if we have the flight ability. Yep, right there. Okay. And what is the UUID of our flight ability here? Or gravity, rather. Let's just search for gravity, that's probably easier. Nope, gonna have to dig a little deeper. Because these days when Minecraft on Forge boots up and whatnot, the length of the logs that it creates are so massive that they actually overflow Eclipse's handling. Do I play Dungeons & Dragons? Boy howdy. Okay, so we're looking for gravity. There you are. Okay. So, instead of that, we want from string. There. Gotcha. Right. So now we've got ourselves a persistent and known UUID for gravity. So, let's see. Is it I attribute modifier or attribute modifier? I can never remember. answer is attribute modifier. Okay. Not an interface. Okay. If mod equals null, then apply. Else, if mod.amount does not equal flight quality amount, that could be gravity. Not even coding in Python. I prefer my code not to be full of snakes, thank you very much. Okay, so in that case we want to also remove the attribute modifier because we've somehow managed to get a different quality of flight. These are executed in line, so you can end up with them with some conflicts. Should I make that the higher one or not? Another question you can also ask is it active? Because if so, we want to actually be able to turn it off. So actually, we probably want that to be a bit higher up, I think. Yeah, it's probably fine. Now I need to remember how I do that. 1 second. There you are. That's what I'm looking for. That's the thing I need. Okay. This got a hell of a lot easier for 1.16, but it's still nonetheless a tad bulky. So flight, quality, gravity, that's the amount. And our operation is multiply total. Okay. So if mod does not equal null and flight.isActive, then gravity, apply persistent modifier, that one. Okay. I want this to remove that in that case, because it's not active anyways. Okay. Trying to if we just have... Yeah, I can make this a bit tidier. If flight is not active, and mod does not equal null, then gravity, remove modifier, that one, else, all of that. Let's see. If it does equal null, then that means we haven't applied the slow fall modifier yet, so we need that version. If the amount does not equal the same thing, we need to also remove the old one and create the new one. And then we apply. Okay. By that point, it shouldn't possibly be null, but I'll leave that in there just in case. Okay. So now, if I have the flight ability, we should have basically zero slow fall. We should have basically zero falling, because we will be removing 100%, I believe it is, of our speed. I think. It's always a bit weird with this. Let's find out. We also don't have MBT handling in right now, so right now all flight is perfect quality, which
Player
is
has joined the game.
admittedly the current case anyways. But we'll be able to bind this to a key binding, so we can actually turn it on and off, so we'll be able to just like full stop, full stop, full stop as much as we like. Which I guess is a decent enough test. But yeah, I've been playing Dungeons & Dragons since the early 2000s-ish, I think. Okay, so types, remove targets div air, because that's giving me that's just giving me free flight anyways. That is creative style. I do not have the flight ability on me, but let's also just clear my listing here because there's a lot going on. Okay. Add that. And we have a problem. Because the game is freezing. So what's going on here? Null pointer. Apparently. Ah, right. I forgot to check if there was a null there, so it just stalled out immediately. Good to find these now, you know. Could be worse. I have released entire beta versions that just immediately crashed the second you tried to boot up a server. I think they're rated at alpha currently on Curse. Okay, good start. Things are okay. So, we've got our flight up here. Doesn't have a name, but there it is. So, it's currently active, so if we actually activate it, so let's see, look. Immediate problem. Good. Okay, modifier is already applied, apparently. So, what happened there? Ah, okay. Just release an alpha DLC in 4 stages this month and tomorrow it comes out proper as a DLC. One of your favorite parts of coding streams is when you press a button and it freezes and you go, ah. Oh yeah. Okay, if it has it, but it's the wrong value, remove the old one, apply a new one. Okay. If it doesn't have it, then apply the new one. There. That should be absolutely perfect. Should be no possibility of it going wrong there. Do we think we, the users, are the beta testers? Technically speaking, yes, because you play on the beta versions. They have fairly exacting standards about what a release version is. I should probably have the display name of the flight ability change depending on whether or not it's currently active, so you can actually tell. Because there was no visual distinction there on whether or not it was active. Maybe it changes from flight to flying, for instance. Okay. Not currently active. Hit it. Apparently also not currently active. Or just ineffective, which is also a possibility. Okay, so let's invert this and say that we want our value to be equal to, well, like negative that. So let's see, public static attribute modifier, make modifier. And we want to give it a grade. Just so we're not doing that the whole time. probably tidy this up a little bit more, but it's fine for right now. Okay, so that would be minus that. Wait, nope. Minus that. Okay. How do I calculate this out of curiosity? Starts at 0, goes up or down, so yeah. Negative grade gravity should make this work. Believe it or not, this is the easy part. After this, we have to try and figure out multi-jump. Oh, there we go. That's low gravity, alright. That's jump boost. That's not quite what we were looking for, but that is... That's definitely having an effect. And an effect I don't appear to be able to turn off, in fact. Ah, I guess because we're going through there. Okay, I see that's why that's not actually changing. As long as that's no, it's just going into there. So it's just reapplying it. There. And there doesn't appear to be anything else special to the artifacts umbrella items, so this should be about everything. It's just a matter of also saying the full distance to be 0. Okay, so there's regular gravity. There is still a regular gravity. Possibly we've given it too short of a period in between activations, because 1 second isn't a whole ton of time. But let's actually go into here and just add some sysouts to see what's happening. See. Oh, hang on. It's also going to be hacking up here because it's going to notice that this isn't always the same thing. Because this has to be negative, which means the attribute modifier's amount is going to be the inverse of the actual grades amount. That absolutely does exist. What are you talking about? It's right there. You use it right there. Or if I... Ah, I've mistyped, that's why. A lot of the dumbest things that you'll find in programming tend to be, well, the dumbest of things. That's probably what was happening, but we'll find out. It was working, it was just also toggling itself on and on, essentially, as rapidly as the ticks could run. Which is also not good, because that would really mess with things. The dumbest thing's the dumbest things. It's like a missing semicolon. Or a missing, like, character in a function name or something. Or you accidentally called the right named function but from the wrong class, that sort of thing. Like, they're usually extremely dumb things, but they're the things you'd completely overlook. Like, some of the toughest bugs tend to be the dumbest things. Okay. Okay. Well, we applied it for a hot second there, and then we removed it, and I wonder if that's related to activated ability. Because it might be that active ticks gets ticked down autonomically. But it doesn't look like it. Yeah, that should just be a standard toggle. So what's making it do down here? What's happening there, I wonder? Applying, removing, because somehow it's detecting that it's not active. The only thing I can think of is that it's just like, really weird. Also, hi Andy, and the 13 people, welcome! Point of note, if you want to help me to, like, actually get to partner, it helps if you refresh when you get here by a raid, because by default, Twitch does not actually count you as watching unless you do that. I don't know why. You'd think it would, but bleh. And it is a long, long, long road to get to partner. You have to have an average of 75 viewers. It's absurd. Most streamers I know barely crack 20. But yes, hello. We are currently trying to engineer flight, starting with slow falling. Okay, that should be updating. So if mod does not equal null and mod's amount does not equal the modifier's amount, meaning the calculated modifier from the quality of flight we currently are looking at, then do that. If that's, then yep. Flight is not... In order to get to applying, we have to be active. So what happens here? Because that shouldn't change. Interesting. Let's try something else, real quick. Which is that right now we set it to be 0 or 1. If I'm right that this is somehow being ticked down, therefore the ability goes offline, there's a really, really absurd thing we can do, which is just set it to the maximum value. Which will more or less never be reached. But might be it. Have I tried going into creative mode? Wouldn't affect this system. Also, it's meant to be like survival anyways. A suggestion I did see a lot of people giving me with regards to how to rework air subtype flight was to just have it tick away at your hunger every time you were flying, which technically we'll be doing anyways when we make them jump, but would be a good idea, would help. Hunger isn't a huge problem, especially in mod packs, but yeah. What are we trying to do? We are currently trying to implement the slow falling half of a flight ability on a toggle so that if it is, for instance, high grade and therefore you barely go down at all, you can actually still turn it off so you can, like, go down a flight of stairs, for instance. So okay, what have we got in our view here? Removed. Okay, so we should be, yep, standard gravity. And we're still seeing We're still seeing it actually apply and remove, except now I can't do anything because I think it thinks it's on cooldown. What is default cooldown? I can't remember. 1 second. That's the amount of time it is on cooldown. Which I'm actually going to increase to 3 for a moment at least. That's the default cooldown. You can customize the cooldown of any ability by altering its MBT data. Okay, so somehow. Oh, I'm an idiot. I think I'm an idiot. I think I know what's happening here. If we go to Breath Weapon and check out the trigger on that, bloop. Can trigger is fine. Down here is the part where it actually does stuff. Only on the server. Right, yes. That's the other thing that tends to happen, is frequently you're just an idiot. So, okay. Ability, move mode, trigger, blip. That's why it wasn't going on to cooldown either. It's because I wasn't actually putting it on cooldown. Okay. So the way the breath weapon works is that you, on the server side, tell it to start. And then it sets its active ticks, so it does the effect as long as the ticks are ticking along, and it puts itself on cooldown, and the server tells the client about all of that. So essentially, you push a button, and it dispenses fire from your mouth until you run out of quarters, essentially. I wonder if I should just make that the standard. Alright, let's put that back to 1. So what was happening there was that it was turning it on the client, but then it was being updated by the server to say that it wasn't active, so it was just stopping. I think. We'll see. Hurting my brain, but it's so fascinating that you can't look away. Yeah, programming's a lot like that. It's both chill and, like, brain hurty. But it's visual problem solving, I think is the way that I've described it before. Okay, normal gravity. And we've still got this... We're going on cooldowns, I can see that part. Except we're not ever triggering again. That's interesting. But we're also still seeing this be removed on the server. Okay, what's happening there then? Something is somehow turning it off on the server. Right. I'm going to take my first break of the evening, so I'll be back in about 10 minutes. Hang out, enjoy the chat, grab yourselves a drink, and I'll be back momentarily. Yes, this button. Welcome back, everybody. So, just when we left off there, we were having an interesting bug in that as soon as we activated our flight, it turned back off again. So, we're currently trying to figure out exactly what's going wrong with that, because it is the same code that makes breath weapons work perfectly fine. So I'm not 100% certain what's going on with that. Another ability that we could check out as a reference point is Ghost Form, which has an on-off sets whether or not you have the incorporeality ability. But that more or less does the same thing that we do, just about, except it uses its own proprietary boolean, which might be the problem. Not 100%. We can also just check the MBT data and see what happens there. But I have quickly added a little bit of lang to this, so we should be able to see if it's actually active or not in our HUD, and that might explain a little bit. We'll see. So currently inactive. Still apparently inactive, and hence completely unable to function. Okay, interesting. Let's have a look at the MBT. Let's grab our flight. Active ticks 1, so it thinks it is actually active. Okay. Cooldown of 20, quality perfect, name flight. All that is correct and accurate. Okay. Am I being a dingus in how is active is calculated? Nope, just greater than 1, so it should believe it's active. Hence, it should show as flying up there, so why not? Interesting. Okay. Let's just alter this then, shall we? I'm trying to remember exactly how this is done. It's just a together list. Can't remember if it includes the tag or not. Active 0. So then we can tag it again. Okay, we can't trigger it from there though. After that, so that's interesting. Yeah, let's just add our own thing in here, because apparently active ticks ain't working. Okay. And when triggered, just basically do the same thing, except change this dot is active to not whatever it is. Okay. If we want to be particularly mean, we could require that you be on solid ground before you can start flying. Or just, you know, not in the water, for instance. Actually, I feel like not being in the water would be the minimum. If you're in mid-air, sure you can start flying again. Okay, so now flight has its own inbuilt thing, is decoupled entirely from the active ticks of an activated ability, so it should actually toggle properly. Let's find out. I've just had an idea for what might have caused it. Hang on, 1 second. Let's see, activated ability is active. Ah, that's why we couldn't trigger it again. Because if an ability is active, it cannot then be triggered. So we can activate it once, and it just wouldn't work. Ah. Okay, but we can now actually keep going. There's just a flaw in our application a bit here that it still keeps removing it. So, I mean, an easier thing would be to just add the slow falling status effect, which exists, but... So if flight is not active, then we remove that. If it is active, then we do all of that. My question is, how are we ending up at not being active? That's the part that doesn't quite make sense to me. At least now we are now actually toggling properly. I should probably change that with the ability mode then, the can trigger section. So that you can trigger it if it's still active. Because the whole point here is these are toggles. It's fine for the moment at least. So what is the problem that's causing it to just turn off like that? I'm not sure. So, for the time being, we'll just presume that we always want it to be turned on. We don't, but... At the very least, we'll be able to see if it does anything properly. I wonder if that's related to... It might be related to the cooldown, I'm not sure. But let's actually get some floating going, shall we? We had it for a brief period. Oh yeah. we definitely have it now. We definitely have 0 downward momentum. Perfectly stationary in midair, in fact. To the point that I can't actually land. And nothing I do will change that. Although that text still doesn't change, which is very interesting to me. Because we think that it would actually do that properly. Let's refresh its MBT and see. Yeah, just does not want to do anything there. That's curious. That should be updating. Unless I'm a dingus and I didn't write the lang properly. Nope, that's fine. Okay. Like, we don't have visual wings, so we actually need it to be on the player's display of whether or not they're flying currently. So we've confirmed that, at least, if it doesn't get removed instantly, that does actually work. There should be no means by which it does that, but... I wonder if it's breaking somewhere. Not 100%. Let's find out. Also, you can kind of see why I feel like this should be a toggle, because otherwise you are just stuck in midair. Which is fine. You're not going to, like, fall to your death or anything, but you also can't go down. So maybe we should make it cap out at, like, 0.95 or something. just so that you are actually always going down slightly, eventually. Yeah, that should be good. Right. If this doesn't help us diagnose what's going on, I don't know what will. Okay, flight is inactive, and then it changes to it's on for a moment, and then it turns off. Interesting. So something is somehow telling it to stop. I have a vague idea I know what it is. Because there's something here that Ghost Form does that our flight ability doesn't, which is transfer through here if it's active or not. This is actually messy and I shouldn't do that, but... Okay, let's try doing that and see what happens. See if that actually solves the problem. I have a sneaking suspicion it will. But then again, I've had many sneaking suspicions over the years. By the way, those of you who are less new to the streams, if you have 10,000 yips, or channel points as they may be more colloquially known, you can make me do 20 squats on camera. You even have a camera for it. Reason being, I'm a very, very sedentary programmer and I need the exercise. But also I have a very significant bootay, and I'm currently wearing leggings, so enjoy that. Okay, so now the create, the builder create function knows whether or not we're active. Oh lordy, yeah, that's working. Woof. Whee. Oh wow. We're getting some air. We are getting some air here. Okay, if I turn it off, do I still take falling damage? No, because I have the construct type, which means I don't take falling damage. Probably for the best. Okay. Types, clear, target, dev. Okay. I no longer have immunity to fall damage. So, fortunately, as a flying creature, or a creature actively flying, don't take falling damage anyways. It'll only engage the falling counter if I turn it off. But okay. Maybe we should have it also turn off the modifier if you, like, sneak. Just so you actually have some degree of control. Probably makes a degree of sense. But okay, we've established that works. Right. We'll keep that at there. So let's see. If entity.is sneaking, then if mod does not equal null, gravity, remove that, else handle the updates. So if we're sneaking, we still won't take falling damage as long as we're flying, but we'll descend at a more normal speed. And that'll actually mean that we can dial this up even higher if we wanted to. Here. Perfect. We finally got part of this to work. So yeah, I'm gonna need to shuffle an is active toggle feature into ability move mode, but for right now, since we're just working on flight, it's fine. Hey, Zaki. Well. So perfect flight is you are flying by your very nature of existence. Like it is, you might as well be a drone. You can move in whatever direction you like at whatever speed you like. Except that we don't currently have multi-jump installed, so consequently you can't change anything like that, but... So, okay, currently flying. Cannot actually jump, because apparently I'm just constantly flying. Which is an interesting concept. Can I even trigger, like, a pressure plate here? Yes, I can. Okay. But I can't, like, I'm guessing I'd have trouble climbing stairs. Yeah. I got bounced by the bed a little bit there. Okay, yeah, we need to tune that. That does need to be... there needs to be a percentile. At least, I think. Call it 0.9, like you have 1% gravity. And if we change the MBT data, we can change exactly how much gravity we have. So the next thing is the multi-jump. And that's going to be a little bit tougher, because for that we need to key into... we need to have a value inside of your actual living data to say how many times you can jump. We need to have that ability, that number increment over time up to a limit. So you can't just flap constantly under most conditions. Good average, like, we can have these actually have, like, different numbers of, like, flaps. In other words, like, a cap on how many jumps you have. Okay, now I should actually be able to, like, jump. Or still not. Yeah, I think it needs to be, like, at least 5%. Which is still not insignificant. Like, that's pretty damn good, all things considered. But okay, let's see. While that boots up, I'll open learning data. I'll show you under our abilities. Should probably go under abilities. Okay, let's try modifying the MBT data. I'm trying to think, is there a planet in the solar system that has like 5% Earth gravity? I'm not genuinely sure. Okay, so that is perfect flight. We can change that to be average. Which is not nearly so dramatic, but definitely you feel it. And then we have clumsy. Well, we also have good, I think. I think I've just gone down 2 steps. Oh yeah, you definitely feel good flight. And then there's clumsy, which experiences no change. And then, of course, there is perfect. Which is maybe a little absurd. I didn't expect it to actually affect the jump height. In hindsight, that was maybe me being a fool, but yeah. At least we can at least we have the capacity to dive bomb. Like, that's okay. Anyways. So we want private int, call them air jumps, I guess. And then in our grade, we want to say how frequently you can jump. Let's see. How do you want to grade this? I mean, we could just make it the rate at which you regain jumps, I guess. Whether you are currently able to jump in the air. Yeah, I think we can do that. Okay. Didn't find anything about another planet, but 5% of Earth gravity is 0.4 meters per second. Ooh. Okay, so when we tick our abilities over here, we want to loop through and, well, we want to check if we have a flight ability, and we want to check if we are actually on the ground, in which case it might behoove us to actually push an ability update event. That probably help us right now, though. Standard out of living events. Okay. So, let's see, Minecraft Forge event bus, post, new, ability, update, event, list.entity. Okay. And then our flight ability can just check that. Okay, right. Let's actually give this some, like, values. There we go. And the value it's complaining about there is the air jumps, which is fine. Trying to... If we had a boolean in here checking whether or not that's 0, and we just use the tick to chunk it down, I guess. That could help. Right, well anyways. Over here, in our flight ability. Get our living entity out of there. And we can even get the abilities. Okay, so we want to check if the entity has this ability first. Same thing we did up here. And if it is active, we want to check on our jumping in the air. So let's see, we grab the abilities and trying to think. Check if the if we're on the ground or some such, we can count that up, or just have that counting up constantly as long as we have the ability. I know there's a few mods that add multi-jump abilities in enchantments and such, because I use one a couple of codes. My problem being I don't actually know which mod it's from off the top of my head, because I added it via the Eidolon and Soul Enchanter, which just drags them from everywhere. Okay, so if we've got that, then just make this public for the time being. We can make accessors later. Okay. Abilities dot air jump timer plus plus if abilities dot air jump timer is greater than or equal to flight quality jump rate, then abilities dot can air jump equals true. Or the entities on the ground. There. Okay. And I think I had a mark dirty in here. Yes, good. Which basically just tells the client side of things what's going on. Okay, so now we just need to actually store that in the MBT, because otherwise it will not be there at all. So this should be this.can air jump equals MBT get boolean can jump. There. Okay. So now we have something that ticks up with our abilities and just basically tells us if we can jump or not. Let me just flip to there. So the next thing is to check if we are attempting to jump, and if our abilities can air jump, then apply an air jump. I think. Oh, that's going to be a client-side thing, though. Okay. Is there a living jump event, perchance? I think there is. Yes, there is. Okay. Fire when an entity jumps in the jump buttons. Okay. We're not going to be using that, though, because I believe this goes beyond the boundaries. So if we're looking at a player, which is important because we otherwise have not the slightest clue if it's us. Okay, if it's a player and we are that player. Do I have last stars of value? I do not. In which case I don't need that chunk, do I? Okay, so living data equals and then we need the abilities. If our player is not on the ground, what is this music? This is Trespass by TSL. It's run by Pretzel, I don't actually control much of anything on it. But yeah, if you look up a little bit in the stream chat, you'll see it. So, if player is not on the ground and can air jump. And then our next thing is it keyboard? Or key bindings? Set key, unpress, updates. Nope. Key binding list, maybe? We are looking for our jump key, essentially. Game settings, there we are. So we want key bind jump dot, let's see, initial key press or key down? Key down, let's go key down. Let's go with that. And let's also use our look vector and tell our abilities that they can no longer air jump. Now we'd ideally be sending a packet to the server for this, because otherwise these will not be synchronized. So let's make a packet air jump. We shouldn't need to actually have that, we just need to have something that only activates on the server side, basically. Hello. How you doing? Can do. Sleep well. Alright, there is a very similar packet that we have, which is related to telling the server what your favorite key, what your favorite abilities have been. Just borrow that for a second. Probably that. Only thing the server really needs to know is who sent this message, which is encoded in basically every message by default. Okay, so if standard does not equal null, then we check the data, then we get the abilities, and if abilities dot can air jump, basically do everything we were about to do up here. Right. I feel like there's something else I've missed here. Right, need to actually keep it to the packet handler. Any luck, I might actually have this working before we've gone to our second break of the evening. So you hold down space, it detects, it sends a packet to the server saying you're trying to air jump. Once that packet gets to the server, if you can still air jump by some reason, then everything gets updated. That should be good. Should be. We'll find out. So let's see, at perfect flight we should be able to jump 4 times per second. Let's see if I've gotten any part of this correct. Actually, did I remember to subscribe the event? Yes, I did. Good. Okay. Well, that's not quite what I would call flight. But it is kind of working. It's just, it's sort of very small teleports. Okay. But it's doing something according to what we tell the server, so good start, at least. Let's see, we want to basically add to the motion of the player, I guess. Yeah, it's progress. Thank you, Knitter. So let's keep the actual motion according to our look vector, because that'll give us a lot more control. Don't know if that'll be sufficient, but let's find out. The trouble is with players is that you need to kind of do everything on the server and the client, or else one of them disagrees. And the client frequently wins out in those arguments. So okay, now we're actually adding motion rather than moving. So hopefully we'll get a bit more of the method that we're looking for. And we don't see anything happening for basically that reason. Okay, right. So we need to do something on the client side to make that motion work. Moving, you can do, because that has to work on the server side, but motion, not quite so much. Or alternatively, maybe we're just giving them too little motion. Which we can define as that. Good. Just to be sure. And let's give our scale 10, because then we will definitely know if something happens. Theoretically, when you're flying and you're not on the ground, we should also put you into the flight pose. I haven't messed around with poses too much, so I'm kind of wary of using them. I do need to get into them for the sleep effect, because that is also a thing that I need to implement. Or finish implementing. It technically exists, it just doesn't work too well. Sleep is fun though, you can give it to mobs and then sneak past them without them actually, like, clocking you at all. It's pretty nice. So we know the packet is getting sent and being received by the server, so it's just a matter now of making it actually work on a player. And Yep, not seeing it work at all, or else I would be able to be continually going upwards. Okay, so yeah, we need to do something on the client side as well then. Let's go to... Yeah, we could just add a function in here to say do air jump. Which would also save us a bit of trouble. There's some weird Christmas music tunes here today, apparently. Okay, so the client just needs to tell the abilities to do air jump, as does this packet. And then we can synchronize spacing on both sides, no problem. Mark 30 only does anything if it's on the server side anyway, so that shouldn't cause a problem. Okay, so yeah, now this one ability, this one function here, controls on both ends. So hopefully now it should work. Fingers crossed. But we'll find out in 10 minutes after my break. Catch you then. And welcome back everybody to the final hour of our evening, and we are currently attempting to ensure that we are able to actually jump whilst in midair, in the direction of our choosing, because that's kind of an important part of flying. And yeah, that feels like we definitely can, doesn't it? Okay, I think it's fair to say that's working then. So we can go pretty much wherever we please. Oh, that's nice. That's really nice. As long as we're flying. If I turn off the flying, or if I shift to, like, turn off our deceleration. Ow! I slightly forgot about the full damage. So you do want to make sure that you make a safe landing. But That's pretty good. Okay. Let's see how that handles if we change this to be clumsy. I don't know that we can even get the air time to get this working. In which case, I probably want to change it from 0 to, like, a low number. Yeah, I think we probably want to change that a bit. Or maybe it's so that it takes way too long. So clumsy is currently basically incapable of flight. Need to note that. But thankfully we can change that just by altering this. Let's change that to... So now it's all about fine-tuning. But hurrah! I also went over to enum creature type, so air officially no longer has its own built-in creative mode flight, it just has our actual flight ability here. So hurrah for that. And since that's at the type level, it will be overwritten by basically anything else that adds flight. So by default, you have perfect flight, but still not gonna have you're still not gonna have creative. And I think we possibly want to change that, unless we change it to like a speed value, maybe. Which we could, actually. If we got the magnitude, then we could do that. Because that is another thing, which is that different creatures fly at different speeds. Okay, 1 second while I just heal up. There we go. Oh yeah, this is really, really clumsy. But we can actually gain altitude. We have to really, really be concentrating, but we can actually manage it. Oh boy. Yeah, this is... Oh, this is rough. We very, very slowly gain altitude at that. Whoa. That is nice. Okay. Let's upgrade that to average. See how that goes. Which has the same... I think the same... Yeah, the same rate of jumping, but lower gravity. Hey Razor, how you doing? So we've got... It's still a bit clunky. We might want to increase the rate over... You either want to increase the rate at which you can jump, or decrease gravity some more. Not sure which. Let's increase that to good. Yeah, good is actually pretty controllable, I would say.
Player has joined the game.
Though it does feel like it's interfering with regular jumping. Yeah. So we probably need to have some check in there of whether or not we're currently flying when we do the air jump. I don't think there's any other abilities that I can at least think of in Dungeons & Dragons that give you double jump. So that part shouldn't be a problem. So do a check for a flight ability, ask if it is active, and if so, do the thing. There. Okay. So if you're on the ground, or if you're not on the ground, and you can air jump, and the key is down, then do the things. Okay. What is there? Is there a check, I presume, in Living Entity for when you can jump? Jump movement factor is jumping. Jump ticks. Okay. There's definitely a dramatic increase in speed as you improve in flight level, in flight capacity, I think. So we probably want to manipulate this value some, so that it's less incredibly severe. We could also modify that by tilting it upwards slightly so that you typically always gain like some degree of altitude unless you're aiming really low. What is the default speed of a player? Out of curiosity. 0.1. Okay, that's probably why we're moving so incredibly fast. There's flying speed, but I don't think that's actually registered more or less on anything. It's registered on bees and parrots, for whom it is irrelevant for us. So we'll keep it movement speed. So if you chug a speed potion, then technically you'll fly faster. We can also make it just that your descent rate, your rate of descent, like how much gravity you have is static, but how frequently you can actually change your position is changing based on your quality, in which case that could work out actually quite well, come to think of it. Okay, flying. I think I hacked it quite considerably. Okay, yeah, I dialed that one down way too much. But the next thing we could do inside of our flight ability is add a speed. Which we will set to be 0.5d for the moment. So since we already check what our... We already check on the client side if we have a flight ability that's active, so the next thing we'll just do is run through, find our flight ability, and find out what the speed is. Okay, and we want to store that in our data, as well as give it an actual default value. I cannot remember what I can never remember what the ID values are of the different NPT types. But it's important to know what they are because you can have multiple things with the same name. Let's see, double NPT. There you are. 6. So if it exists, then we do that. Alright. Can we just add motion, or is it always set? Nope, we could get the motion and then add it to that, but then we'd also be fighting gravity. But okay. That should allow us to actually alter our speed of flight, which is pretty sweet. Once we actually get it here. I think I should be able to just modify that from... yeah, okay. So that would be flight.speed equals that. Okay. Should store properly, should translate properly. Some of these I don't need to do that qualification on because the defaults of what it will return here if it doesn't find that actually is in there is what I want it to be anyways. So, is active. If it's not there, then it'll be false, which, that's fine. Other things will error out completely if they don't find it, so you be careful. Okay. So now we have a speed value in here. Okay. Not the most graceful of flights, but it's there. And if we increase that, say 0.7, then we find that we go much, much farther per jump. I feel like 1.5 or like 0.7 might be a good basic value looking at it. We could also probably do with adding Elytra style pivoting so that you have better control of where you're going, that kind of thing. But it's doing pretty well. That ding, by the way, if you're new here, is the sound of an ability coming off cooldown, and in the client-side config you can turn that off. Okay, perfect level flight. It's pretty sweet, it has to be said. Just gonna keep going up. Just wow, okay. And if I want to go down, as long as I don't turn off the flight midway, I will not take falling damage. Okay, as long as we're inactive, we do not mess with our capacity to jump. Good. Okay, might be good to add a sound effect to whenever you jump, or at least a a decent number of times that you jump. Like the Ender Dragon has a like flapping sound, so we could play that whenever abilities triggers do air jump, or randomly when it triggers do air jump, I guess. So let's see. Ender Dragon. Well, actually, sound events will be where I want to be. No sounds. Nope. God, where am I looking at here? There? Okay, just check the Ender Dragon, I guess. There we are. That's the one. Okay. Right. That will make it happen every single time, but at least then we'll know it's working. It's always a rough thing when you're trying to make flight, because you need to make it so that people are actually able to still go downwards. But frequently, like if you're making a flying mount, for instance, there is the problem where the most intuitive button to use when you're trying to go down is shift. But if you're riding a creature, that is also the dismount key. So you quite frequently end up plummeting because you just got off your flying griffin mount like 200 blocks in the air. Okay. Yeah, that works alright. We're definitely hearing that. We're hearing that on our client side though, so there's a degree of question as to whether or not the server would hear it. I presume the server would, but... Okay, I'm gonna add an ability for like an actual constructor that takes speed. Just because then I can actually change that to be what I want a bit easier. I see what I promise. There. So, enum creature type. Perfect. Point 17. And abilities. If entity get RNG next int, we'll say like 1 in 4, then do the flap noise. Because that way at least you won't hear it all the time. So, okay. 0.7 feels like it's a decently reasonable kind of like default value there. So let's plonk that to there. And I think that's actually flight done. I think that's working. I think that's good enough. What do we think we could change, chat, to improve it further? We've got the flapping noise, we've got all 4 different variations, and they are meaningful and like distinct. What do we think? Obviously, I still need to tidy it up by putting the is active part actually in ability move mode, but pretty good, pretty good. To that end, I think I'll actually just do that now, because it will not take me a minute. So trigger this dot is active equals not this dot is active. So don't need that part anymore. And that can just be over here. And if we wanted, we can actually have this turn off entirely in the case of if you're paralyzed, for instance. Though if you're paralyzed, you also can't hit this, you also cannot jump, so good luck. Let's make that a protected boolean, just so that subclasses can actually access it. Okay, that looks all good to me. Grand. And as I say, we can just alter the activated ability parts that just determines if you can trigger it so that we can actually turn these things off once we turn them on. But that's pretty good. That's pretty good. Okay. Yeah, very happy with that. So, over to our ability registry. Flight. Complete. I also need to do climbing. That's technically another ability move mode. Tunneling or burrowing is another ability mode. Let's see if I can pull that up. Okay, climbing, fairly straightforward. Swimming, already in the game. Flight, yeah. Theoretically, we could implement swim as being like a toggleable speed boost. So you can still swim normally, should you desire, but if you need a speed boost for going a long distance, then you activate that ability. Burrowing is a little bit more complicated, because it's basically conditional no-clip, is how it's described here, but would that be how we would necessarily want it to function in Minecraft? Because it varies quite considerably. Most burrowing creatures do not leave behind tunnels other creatures can use, either because the material they tunnel through fills in behind them, or because they do not actually dislocate any material when burrowing. So I guess we would have a boolean in there as to whether or not it causes tunnels to be left behind. Like if it breaks blocks while you're doing it, I guess. Can tunnel through dirt, but not through rock unless the descriptive text says otherwise. So we would probably want to have another boolean for that or something. Or like a max hardness value, possibly. Currently, it is implemented as part of the Earth creature, the Earth subtype. Except that instead of being straight no-clipping through terrain, it just increases your dig speed. Although I've had word that this is not necessarily entirely functional, which is weird, but oh well. Every other part of that works, it's just that for some reason, the speed is increased, but if it goes over 100%, then it just wraps back, and then it breaks. It's odd. I've actually had mining speed races with players on my Patreon server to try and identify what's going on with that, but low light vision and dark vision are annoying as hell, because Minecraft's lighting engine is really basic. Really basic. So it's really hard to actually modify that. Like the way that low light vision works, effectively, is that it just doubles the range of torches, for instance. So instead of having a max light level of 15, you have a max light level of 30. Or I guess 32. Whereas dark vision is you can see fine in pitch blackness, it's just black and white. Dark vision, to that extent, you could argue could just be the night vision effect, but that doesn't solve how low light vision comes in. Plus, you can still see normal color and whatnot in non-pitch black environments. Essentially, it's just whenever the area is dark enough. Like, there'd be a sliding scale, I guess, from full brightness to grayscale at 0. But to do those, we would really ideally need to have a considerably more comprehensive, I guess, lighting engine, which is annoying because dark vision and low light vision are two of the most common abilities amongst creatures. It's like if we're going to be implementing creature types by themselves, then we just ideally want to have those just to differentiate them a bit better. Right now, a lot of types just don't really do anything because we don't have those two abilities. Annoying as hell, but oh well. Light sensitivity comes in a few different races that I want to. Well, I'm calling them species in the code. In D&D, they're referred to as races, but it's 2021. I prefer to not describe something as a race if necessary. But light sensitivity is sort of like blindness. You're more dazed. Like, you can't really see entirely clearly. It'd be like a shader that, like, turns up the contrast or the gamma, essentially. Which is definitely possible, but I am terrible at graphics code, so probably not that. Climbing, fairly straightforward. We just add a mix in to check if it's toggled, and if so, then we just, like, say, we toggle into the same exact code actually that spiders use. If we have a look at them. There is a function called isOnLadder. So literally, spiders are just always on ladders, basically. So if we added the climbing ability, we would just mix into the living entity, check if they have that ability. If it's on, then set this to definitely true. Or just that, I guess. Is beside climbable block, which is an interesting thing. Let's see where that goes. If it's collided horizontally. So, yeah, straightforward. We could theoretically... Web is not an ability that spiders actually have. Spiders in Minecraft have zero connection to webs, except that they can move through them fine. It's weird. You would think that they would actually leave webs or something, but no, they drop string, that's the extent of it. You can't even make cobwebs out of string. But the web ability here would be to actually hurl a projectile that on collision provides web, essentially. Blaze fireballs, straightforward. Etherealness is basically incorporeality plus. Incorporeal creatures can pass through the outer edges of terrain, but they can't pass straight through terrain, whereas ethereal creatures absolutely can. If you needed a comparison, there is the Origins mod that has the Phantom species, and they essentially have etherealness. Which is weird because Phantoms in Minecraft don't, but... Silk Touch is an annoying one, because you would think there would be some kind of event somewhere that would that would ask if it's there, but it isn't. It's just part of, like, everything else. So theoretically, I would need to somehow add Silk Touch to your bare hand in order to actually make that work. Which would be an interesting thing if it just made, like, your hand glow. That'd be really cool, actually. It's like you just have an enchantment on your fists. Your fists have the enchantment machine. God, that'd be fun. But otherwise, I think that's basically everything. We're very close to, not feature complete, but feature ready. At least. Is this all good? Seems it. Yeah, I think we're good there. So yeah, we could just have, there's the Dolphin's Grace, I think it is, buff. So we could have it be that when you activate your swim ability, it gives you that buff for like a couple of seconds, and then you have to trigger it again after a cooldown to actually, like, get it again. So it's basically like a speed boost. That'd be an interesting way to do it. Because Having the Dolphin's Grace ability, like, buff all of the time when you're swimming is a nightmare. Because you have basically zero control. So just being able to actually turn it on and off would be a godsend. If you have the swim ability, you probably also have water breathing anyways, so... is there anything else? Anything else I can think to add to this? I don't think so. I think this is basically already done. Yeah, I think this is good. It is an activated ability, but that's mostly so that you have more control over it. For most creatures, I imagine these things would just be default on. In which case, we probably want to default them to on, come to think of it. Blip. Do I want to do the mix in 18 minutes? I can do. Okay, let's add climb. Real quick. Let's add climb. So public static. Final resource location. Registry name. This will be really simple. Technically speaking, there's also climb speed, but I don't know much how we would implement that. Like, technically speaking, there are creatures that have different rates of ascension, essentially, but I don't know 100% how we would implement that on the basis that pretty much everything in Minecraft climbs at exactly the same speed. There we go, okay, in the ability registry we just add that. Easy as could be. And over in our mix-in, at living entity, trying to think. On climb wall, I guess. Inject into the method is on ladder. Which returns a boolean at the head. Cancel the wall equals true. Okay. Which means you actually need callback info. So, living entity equals living entity object. This class is not actually a living entity, but that helps us to trick it. So if ability registry has ability, entity ability climb, and ability climb, get the ability. I can probably save myself some trouble by just retrieving the ability, checking if the retrieved ability is null, but for right now, at least this is okay. Where are you? Get ability by name. So, are we active? Over there? Yes, we are. Then, CI Well, now we need to check, are we actually collided? I guess we can just ask if the entity is collided. Collided horizontally. There. Okay. Literally, this is spider climb. All of that should be accurate, I believe. So, we should just be able to chuck that in. Do I want to make that... Toggleable is always good, I think. Giving players control over their movements is a particularly good thing. So let's... very quickly hop back to flight. So, climbing and climb. Okay. You can put these onto, since they're activated abilities, you can put these onto your key bindings, but you can also just activate them from the menu. So, don't need to worry about that. The fun thing is, a lot of creatures like dragons have both flight abilities and climb abilities, so they can just hang on to like the side of a cliff face if they need to. I was right about the name, I think. Right, was I? Let's check it out. Is on letter. Yes, good. Okay, that should be fine. So our final thing of the evening here is to just check if we can implement climbing really, really easily. There she is. Added climbing. Doesn't really know if it's functional or not right now, but there it is. Okay, turn off that. And we are indeed able to climb. We can't stop, though. Is an unfortunate thing, but we are at least able to do that. We are at least able to climb the thing. Not bad. Ow. We can still fall to our deaths, though. Ha! Okay. There's definitely some, like, improvements that could be made there, I think. Like the capacity to stop, for instance. To pause for contemplation. But how do we achieve that, I guess? Presumably, is on ladder is used elsewhere in order to determine if you should be going, like, falling down. So let's see. Add movement. If we're on ladder, and that is greater than 0, climb... Nope, that's not what we're looking for then. Attack target entity with current item. Not gonna help us there either. Travel? It's if we're sneaking, I think. Like 6 and 7. Not much going on there. Regular flag. Movement input dot jump. No. Movement input dot sneaking. No reference to that. Okay. Might be better just to check is sneaking. I think. Just trying to see. Let's see, has stopped climbing. Where is that referenced? handle unclimbable. Let's see, if D is less, if D2, which is to say Y motion is lower than 0 and not scaffolding and has stopped climbing. Interesting. I guess because we're not collided horizontally at that stage, so we're therefore going to fall. Interesting. Also, according to that code, players only have things that can stop on ladders. Is there a way for me to detect if you're against a wall without collided horizontally? Because collided horizontally is a very important distinction. It means that your movement would put you inside of a wall if you weren't actually prevented by the collision. Immediately after that, you're pushed back out and you're no longer collided horizontally, so you then don't count as being on a wall. The exception being with ladders, because ladders don't have an actual collision box for the most part. Oof. I would probably need to do a check within your very near vicinity for collisions, and if there are collisions, then count you as being on a ladder, essentially. That would, however, have the side effect that you would move quite slowly along. If you grazed a wall, your speed would drop quite a bit, I think. It's more work to find out than in 7 minutes at least. But hey, we got 2 different movement modes. We got very complex flight. That works quite well, I do say so. And we got climbing in. So I think next time around we'll try and get burrowing. Which is going to be another variation on phasing, I guess. And maybe we'll get web or something else going, I'm not sure. Either way, I'm hoping to have the species system working within the next few weeks, at the most. So at that point, we'll be able to actually put together a screen that players see when they first log in, where they can pick their species, which will apply a species object to them, which will come with its own creature types, its own abilities, and some other details as well. And then we'll be one step closer to basically having an entire player sheet, an entire character sheet inside of Minecraft. So Minecraft as a full-blown RPG, it's on the way! A full-blown D&D style RPG. And then of course we can work on templates, which are like species, except that they apply operations essentially to your species, such as to, for instance, make you undead if you happen to be resurrected as a zombie or something. But that'll be fun. Anyways, that's all I have for tonight. My next stream should be on a Thursday with some Among Us with the World of Madness crew, and then on a Saturday we have the Carousel, where I spin the wheel and play some random games with the patrons, and we'll be back for more of this on Tuesday. Meanwhile, keep an eye out at youtube.com/remembercomic for any videos I do, and everything I do is powered by you at patreon.com/lying. Hope you've all enjoyed, and I'll catch you all as ever next time. I'm astonished nobody made me do squats today. And I'm wearing such cute leggings too.